Good morning, Mr. Bellegarde. Welcome to Mi'kma'ki territory. What brings you here to Listuguj?
What brings me here? A really nice invitation from Chief Darcy to come to be with him in his community. And I've never been to Listuguj before. So when I saw him at our last AFN AGA in Niagara Falls 2 or 3 weeks back, I said, hey, let's make this happen. I want to come out to Listuguj. He invited me, so we're here just to share in the powwow celebration, the powwow gathering, and to listen to some of his council concerns from this morning, and that's why I'm here.
Here in the Atlantic, we have a few concerns: education and culture funding. What has the new government been doing to be able to listen to our concerns? Are they listening to our concerns?
They're starting to move on it. You know, last year the Prime Minister came to our Chiefs in Assembly, and he made 5 key commitments to our Chiefs. Number 1, that there would be an inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. So that started. He said the Liberal government is committed to implementing all 94 calls to action from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And that's key, because one of those 94 calls to action is the honoring and the implementation of the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. That's huge. So the third thing, because we had a 2% funding cap for the last 20 years, he said we're going to lift that 2% funding cap and establish processes to work towards long-term, sustainable, predictable funding. That's 3. Fourth one was education. The importance of a good education, not only on reserve but off reserve. So good schools, good teacher salaries, good proper curriculums, proper resources, right? That's 4. And the 5th one, he committed to a law review. So all these laws that have been unilaterally imposed, Bill C-38, Bill C-45, Bill C-51, Bill C-27, all of these laws that were unilaterally imposed with no consultation or consent that impact on our inherent rights and our jurisdiction and our treaty rights have to be changed. And I've also said it's not only the laws that have to be changed, it's their policies that have to be updated. Comprehensive claims policy, specific claims policy, the additions to reserve policy, and the inherent right to self-government policy that have not changed in 20 years, that are still based on termination of rights, not recognition of rights entitled. So all that has to be changed. So 5 key commitments. So going back to your question about language and culture, are they listening? They're starting to listen. They're starting to, because under that education, languages is so important. And so we have 58 languages left in Canada. And Mi'kmaq is one of them. Cree is another one. Ojibwe, Anishinaabeg, Blackfoot, like there's 58 different languages. And I've always said they should be viewed as Canada's national treasures. There's nowhere else in the world these languages are spoken. And so they've got to come out of the shadows of English and French, you know? And so now there's a greater push, a greater focus, because it's part of reconciliation. It's part of moving beyond the genocide of the residential schools. And if government were to help us and to preserve and recover and revitalize Indigenous languages, that's really an investment in our young ones. Because studies have shown that once you're fluent in your language, you're more successful in school and therefore more successful in life. So yes, it's a start. More needs to get done, but I think we're moving down that road.
You just spoke about the youth and the education. Is there anything being done about the education currently in Canada?
There is. You know, and what we've done, and this is where the premiers get involved. You know, the premiers have the responsibility for curriculum changes. So what we're doing to the premiers and talking to the premiers and asking them to look at amending their curriculums in every province. Those curriculums should be amended to include and teach about Aboriginal rights and treaty rights and inherent rights of Indigenous peoples, to teach about the impacts of the residential schools, which is genocide, the intergenerational impacts of the residential schools, to teach about the Indian Act, you know, and the colonization of the Indian. All those things have to be taught from kindergarten to grade 12, not only on reserve to our Indigenous students, but off reserve. So in the province of New Brunswick, in the province of Quebec, in the province of Saskatchewan, the province of British Columbia, these schools need to start teaching. So curriculum changes. So it's starting to happen because everybody says, we didn't know about treaties. We didn't know about residential schools. We didn't know about the Indian Act. How come we didn't know about these things? You know, so it's all about educating people. And so it's education and awareness leads to understanding and leads to action. So we have to keep pushing for those changes to happen. And it's starting. Even a simple thing like recognition of our languages as official languages of the territory. They do that in the Northwest Territories for the 11 Dene languages. So why can't New Brunswick do that for the Mi'kmaq and the Maliseet languages here? Why can't they do that in Saskatchewan for the Cree and the Ojibwe and the Dene and the Dakota and Assiniboine? Like, it could happen. So it's starting to happen, but we've got to keep pushing.
You travel a lot across Canada. What are one of the main concerns and issues of the First Nations youth?
Basically, some of the main concerns and issues are their identity. The young people are searching for their identity, their languages and their culture and their ceremonies. You know, it's like they need to and want to walk in both worlds, and they need two systems of education. So what I mean by that, what I'm hearing is that they need kindergarten to grade 12, strong on math and science, strong on literacy and numeracy, but equally important on the other hand is the other education. And this other education is your languages and your ceremonies and your traditions and who you are and where you come from. You need both. So that's one of the big concerns, right? Making sure that they get that and walk in balance in both worlds, because that's what they want to do. It's getting that pride back. Getting that pride back, because it's like they're still feeling the intergenerational impacts of the residential schools. That's what's happening. And at one point, it was no good to be Indigenous, no good to be Indian. You know, Indians are dumb, stupid, lazy, drunk on welfare. You know, your languages are no good. Your beautiful long hair is no good. Your ceremonies are, in fact, you're no good. That's what the residential school taught to our children and our parents and our grandparents. And so the young people are saying, hey, we're proud. We're going to be proud when we walk in both worlds. So they're seeking that identity. They're looking for that grounding. That's what it seems to be happening across. So that's some of the big issues, is getting back and getting reconnected to their language and the culture.
I have one last question.
Yeah.
Where do you see us First Nations in 25 years?
I see us in a way better spot than we are now. What I mean by that is Canada is rated 6th in terms of quality of life, high up according to the United Nations Human Development Index. When you apply the same indices to Indigenous peoples, we're 63rd. 6 versus 63rd. So within 25 years, we're going to go up here, up to 50, up to 40, up to the same quality of life. So there's not going to be any more overcrowded housing. There's not going to be any more black mold. There's not going to be 134 boil water advisories in our communities. There's not going to be the high youth suicide rates. And we're going to start dealing with the violence, and we're not going to have 1,200 missing, murdered Indigenous women and girls. That numbers are going to come down. So in 25 years, there should be that plan about Indigenous peoples coming back, getting healthier, getting stronger, taking our rightful place in Canada, but not only Canada, but throughout the world. And we have so much to offer, not only Canada, but the world, our Indigenous teachings. You know, how we're to walk in balance. You know, and everybody's talking about climate change, greenhouse gas emissions. Well, just listen to our elders. Listen to our people that are like, and our worldview, and this, I'll close on this. An Indigenous person's worldview is so important. And what it is, and if everybody could adopt this simple worldview, because we don't see color. When we go to ceremony, our old people and our elders will acknowledge, of course, the Creator. They'll acknowledge the ones that sit in the east and the south and the west and the north, those beings that sit there. They'll acknowledge Mother Earth, for everything comes from Mother Earth. They'll acknowledge Father Sky, Grandmother Moon, Grandfather Sun, our relatives, the star people. They'll acknowledge the male plants and the female plants. They'll acknowledge our relatives, the four-legged ones. You know, we're the two-legged tribe. We don't see color. We don't see black. You know, like, we're the two-leggeds. And then they'll also acknowledge the ones that fly, the ones that swim, the ones that crawl, and then most importantly, they'll acknowledge those four grandmother spirits that look after the waters: the rainwater, the fresh water, the salt water, and then water that comes when life comes. The power of women. Life comes when the water breaks. So from an Indigenous perspective, we're all part of that. And if that concept, that philosophy, that worldview can be adopted by governments not only in Canada but throughout the world, we'll have clean water, we'll have clean air, and there's going to be a brighter future, not only for Indigenous children, but for the whole world. That's what I mean. So within 25 years, if that philosophy can be taught, there's a bright future for our children and grandchildren. That's what I see.
Thank you very much, Perry. That was excellent. Well, Alden,
Okay, thanks for the opportunity to share a few thoughts.
thank you for giving me an opportunity to talk to you.
All right, thanks.